Okay, so I decided just going to record you guys a video going over your prologue, kind of what's going on with everybody individually, at least for the next, 2 to 5 years after your uh, successful saving of Elturel, both the city and the souls. You did it. Well done. Pulling off either one of those would have been tough, um, let alone pulling off both and surviving for the most part, intact for the most part. Okay, so we'll start with randoms since we kind of know and have an idea of what was going on with him, anyways. So, unfortunately, the Red Caps were decimated. Pretty, actually, more than decimated. I think decimated means 1/10. I think maybe 1/10 of the um, Red Caps are alive. Actually, after it's all said and done, Mad Maggie is heartbroken, but also proud of her boys. Um, and so she says she has big plans, but first she needs her ranks replenished. So after saying his goodbyes, which were short and not very sweet in random fashion, he took off after getting um, taking kind of his reward, which was a massive upgrade to his motorcycle. His hellish his devil's ride, mayhem. We'll go over that, but basically it is tricked out to the max now. Uh, Built, kind of rebuilt from the ground up. On top of it, Silvara showed you a way of using magic items, basically consuming, depending on their power or out of game, kind of the rarity, how long from very rare items. Um, we'll have to kind of go over that, but it's not. You no longer have to feed it souls, uh, but you swore to uphold for the next 5 years. So you went out with the remaining red caps, your new mayhem, their devils or their hellish war machines, while Mad Maggie went about her plans, whatever those were. So for the first few years, you basically rode across the planescape, um, either recruiting, sometimes conscripting, sometimes just decimating whatever you have to. Basically, going throughout the plains looking for those that can join your red caps. Red caps don't have to be the mad caps necessarily. The red cap is something you earn, right? Anybody. It's rare. Random was the first, but I'd imagine he kind of opened that up a little bit. So your first stop was the Feywild, looking for these mad caps, traveling the darker sides of the Feywild, looking for the ones that were crazy by madcap standards, and seeing if they had what it took to eventually become red caps. Under your command, it was not hard to get many of the madcaps and many other creatures. One of your first that had to prove themselves and did was that group, that war band of gnolls, that had made you had made uh, they were fans of yours from the Coliseum and everything. Though only half of them survived, which left a total of 8 gnolls survived their kind of initiation, seeing if they had what it took. They're all wearing their red caps. And actually, they've just like dyed their manes on top of their heads red with blood from their enemies. And they've joined yours. You guys have built up some new war machines, and in fact, Mad Maggie had taken the golden one back home and kind of given out some of her more prized ones to you as well. So as your ranks swell, it became easier and easier as you rode across, and now traveling to different planes, looking for the kind of the mindset that you're looking for. Finally, you find out that Mad Maggie's ultimate plan was to carve out an area in a new plane, somewhere she thought would be even more suitable for her lifestyle and her plans and all of that. Basically, she wants a stronghold in Pandemonium, and so you lead the war band. Basically, she sends you to a rival who has a stronghold there, built out of um, bones. um, this stronghold needed to fall, and the lands around it kind of carving out your. It was a brutal battle, and uh, Mad Maggie's one of her enemies and nemesis was most certainly weakened, but actually ended up escaping, but you were nevertheless successful as you carved out a small kingdom in pandemonium for Mad Maggie. And that's kind of where we left off with Random after his 5 years, I believe, of service. Um, so quite eventful. There might be some other stuff I might send. Lorgar, unfortunately, he died in the battle. Um, I think, did he die? Yeah, I have to relook. But if he did die, if he did die, which I think he did, he is, as you guys realized as you jumped through that portal, as you tried to drag him through, something kind of stopped. You feel him get heavy and he drags before he's just ripped away. Something quite powerful, probably on the plane of Avernus, did not let him go. Okay, and so Kessin immediately tried to revive his sister, in which would have been successful. Her spirit did return, but upon seeing his sister, who, though she was and this is coming from her, though she was faithless, she was spared the wall because she sacrificed herself. You know, she died saving Elturel, and so she is granted paradise, kind of in her afterlife. Seeing his sister with her hand returned, no scars, that kind of weight of the world, the massive weight of her world, that terrible world she had on her shoulders, that look of kind of desperation hidden behind that steely reserve, and that it took, that he, was one of the few people who saw that, and that kind of lifted away. She said she would absolutely come back, even though she knew what that meant, with kind of going back into that trauma, but Kessin saw that it wouldn't have been right and decided um, that it was best for her. And though it was the hardest thing in his life, he had been looking for her for a better part of a decade, and had just found her, and now has to kind of let her go. He feels like it was the right thing to do, and so she's able to rest. He immediately goes to work. Um, First of all, he wants to try to find his friend Risberg immediately. So he makes sure that Elturel's in good order. He also knows that he wants vengeance against Van Thamper, and though immediately his mindset is to go to Baldur's Gate, kill her. He thinks, well, um, I gotta have allies. And Random, unfortunately, the contract. I mean, he immediately had to go to. He did his job, and now he's going to do his thing. So, and he needs Risberg. They become boon companions, and so with that, he decides, I'll find Risberg. I'm going to travel utilizing the help of the Candlekeep, utilizing the mass fortune he kind of ends up gaining through his help, and all that. After you guys end up kind of consolidating all that, using his contacts Candlekeep, using the tower. Even if he can't use it yet, he certainly knows there's mages around that can, to help him kind of shunt around the planes, or at least to certain planes, if he needs to. And he certainly utilizes the small jammer, which again can travel planar, and with his fortune, he can carry scrolls, and he has many different ways right now to kind of skirt around. However, he does find that it's immediately hard to kind of find anything out about Risberg. Number one, there's a lot of rumors going on at Avernus. Some say that after Trask had finished, they destroyed his body, obliterated it, and everything and fed his soul to feed one of their war machines. Other rumors say that Trask continues to use his body now, and does so kind of out of an insult, probably. Others say that he was released from his body. Trask took his true form and was then captured and has been tortured and captured ever since. Others say he was tortured and killed. One thing you do know is cannot be found on Avernus. That was your initial for the first few years, everything you had into, that's where he was at. He's certainly not in Avernus. You cannot locate him at the time, at this time. Well, actually, there's, here towards the end, in the third or fourth year, as you're as you're doing other things as well, kind of carving out your place, your own little place as well, you do end up finding kind of a lead, but we'll talk about that as well later on. Alistair. So the last you saw, Alistair was flying down with the sword. The corrupting energy of the companion had like it was alive and going for a defensive maneuver attacked out, as the radiant energy from the sword and the divine energy apparently from Alistair all kind of came together and blasted back this black necrotic energy um, that was grasping out, clawing out at Alistair, and as the shield kind of erupted, and in that moment with his robes flowing and his white hair and his kind of his determined look on his old face, he looked mighty. He looked divine. If ever he looked divine, it was then as he struck the companion, and that was the last you saw with him as a burst of radiant energy basically wiped out the initial force of devils as they swarmed into Elturel to finish off whoever was still alive, because you had just released the city. Zariel was going to kill as many as she could to take as many souls as she could. And as that initial wave washed out before Zariel could come, and you guys, before the solar appeared, you guys, that was the last you had seen of him. So there has been many stories going on from Elturel. Obviously, people told what they, there was eyewitnesses to some degree now, but what they saw and how they interpreted it, right? So there's many different things. Some say he's destroyed. Others say, some scholars say he's lost to planes, to the planes and the realms, or the forever to float in the vortices of nil space. However, many small cults. Cult is a strong word. Small followings, some more extreme than others, never aggressive or violent toward any other people, certainly kind of violent to themselves, sprout up in the name of Alistair. What's odd, though, is that there's different takes, just like there's different takes on any religion. There's different takes on kind of what he stood for. Alistair always stood kind of more for the suffering side of it. Ilmater, who he's kind of part of, is kind of more known for the taking on of others' suffering. And yes, he embodied that to some degree, but, Alistair really kind of embodied just the suffering side of it. That smaller, more, more towards that side of it. Any kind of suffering type of, is good. Suffering is good. That aspect of Ilmater, though he is separate now. The thing about it is that even the gods, there's no divine magic that can find him, because he kind of is a part of that. So no one's sure of what is going on. What, again, Kessin is able to find during this time. He's done a lot of studying, and was also looking for Alistair. Is what him and the remaining scholars of religion at the Candlekeep. Martin died in the battle, unfortunately. However, he comes back often. He is summoned back often to talk, and couldn't be happier to be in the afterlife and to get some of these answers he spent his entire mortal life. He couldn't be happier. And so he's actually even kind of part of it, kind of learning. But even to him, it's hard to figure out what's true. But what's going around kind of is that there's kind of a battle going on for Alistair, or in a way, Alistair in the suffering. There's two gods that kind of encompass that, right? You have Ilmater, who takes on who's kind of considered a goodly god, who takes on others' suffering in the name of like righteousness and that type of thing. But then you have Lovitar, who is more about creating that kind of stuff, creating suffering and pain and torture and things like that. Though there are some aspects of that too, just like there's some more aggressive aspects of Ilmater. But from what Martin and the other scholars kind of, over these 5 years have kind of gathered, is that there's a battle raging for the divinity of Alistair. Ilmater, I'm sure, would most certainly like to be reunited to some degree, or at least seen that his aspect is represented in a proper way. Lovitar, of course, sees it as an affirmation, or reaffirming that the suffering aspect is what's important, not the reasoning behind it. And then, of course, whatever's happening with Alistair, wherever he's at, and that's the big question, that nobody can find him or knows what's going on. He's not. His followers have been receiving spells. None have seen any high level spells yet. That doesn't mean, that just most of the stuff has been the lower tier things that anybody has seen, but that doesn't mean anything necessarily. But um, so some, that's the big news that's going on, is that perhaps there's a battle going on there, or for that divine spark, and and all you want to do is find your friend Alistair, uh, you know, and so yeah, that's kind of the prologue to some degree what's going on. I'm sure you guys will have questions or something, so we'll do Discord to do some, either if there's some private stuff, or if if you guys want to do some public stuff too, that doesn't matter, just say it in the general chat and we can do it that way as well. But I'm super excited about playing as well. I hope everybody else is really excited about playing. Uh, but that was a blast. The campaign, I know, is a little bit of, I wouldn't say railroading. It was very linear, but as I got used to the online, I found it was so much harder. There were so many awesome things about the online, but for me, I kind of had to have, only 3 options as maps available and things like that. So, I'm excited about playing. Also, whenever we're ready, I'll run another campaign, which I'm super excited about. And eventually, I want to come back and do like the second round 2 and go to, like, you guys are 13th level, maybe go up to like 18th level, as a shorter campaign and answer some of these questions. That would be fun, maybe to revisit that later. But also, I also have another campaign brewing once we get, as we get into Dad's campaign farther on, or maybe we finish that one completely, and all that. That will be more open-ended as I've kind of gotten the feel for it. But overall, I had a blast. I didn't think you guys would pull both of them off, first of all, just because I was like, I'm going to throw a bunch of shit at them and make it really tough. Trask has been working from the beginning, since you guys tried to first escape um, Elturel, or you did escape Elturel and took the sword with him, and so I was like, man, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a kick to the gut when he turns or he tries to, and I knew he had a good chance of being successful. So yeah, that being said, Steve, don't take, I'm sorry I took some of your agency away at the end. That sucks. I don't necessarily like to do that, but I thought it was still fun. You didn't do anything wrong. You were a blast play as Risberg. It was charisma saves. That sucks. So don't, I think it added to the gameplay and like this real kind of, you guys were successful, but there was some, it was bittersweet in some ways. So I hope you had fun, and I don't normally, I hate to take that stuff away from you on the last battle like that, but I think it was a lot of fun. Yeah, so I hope this video is easier than trying to send messages and all that, or writing huge long documents that nobody wants to read. So, all right, guys.